Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. Really excited to be live on Friday here. Love these Q&A sessions. We can kind of dive into any of the issues that are hot on the topic here. Also, I got two podcasts. I think I'll probably make them go live right after this Q&A here at 10 and 11 a.m. CST time. So one's going to be on dental health. The other one, we're going to talk a lot about MTHFR, and we're going to analyze genetic tests. So super stoked about that. So what do you guys want to chat about today? Feel free and message me in the chat. Again, this is one of the only functional medicine shows that I'm aware of where we do a live Q&A like this. So feel free, take advantage of it, get your questions asked. I'll probably do a video today as well. So if you have any comments about new videos that you want to see coming up, please feel free and let me know that as well, so we can make sure that we get some really good information out there for y'all. All right, cool. So a couple questions here. Is it okay to take parasite killing herbs before going to sleep? I don't see that being a problem. Again, it depends, because if you're taking them and then you're lying flat to go to sleep, sometimes there can be potential a little bit of irritation as it goes up into the esophageal area. So I think you have to go figure that out for yourself. I took some last night before bed and I had no problem. So I think it depends on the individual. But I think worst case, if you're more sensitive, definitely give it at least an hour or two just so it can get through the stomach. That way there's less chance of it moving back up to the esophagus area. Let me go over to Facebook here. Can you talk about low dopamine levels and how to raise them? So number one, dopamine levels are primarily, dopamine is a neurotransmitter, right? It's going to be that reward center neurotransmitter, and it is going to come from tyrosine or phenylalanine. These are amino acids. So number one, being able to digest your protein is really important. So low hydrochloric acid or poor digestion, number one. Number two is you're under a lot of stress. So you're burning up a lot of dopamine, right? You're burning up a lot of it because your body's using that to buffer the stress so your brain can function during stress. Number three is your dopamine is going to turn to adrenaline to deal with that stress, right? And that could be physical, chemical, or emotional stress. Poor sleep as well. You can also overstimulate dopamine through sugar and carbohydrate and recreational drugs and alcohol. That's the reason why people engage in these things, is they're using a destructive vehicle to increase their neurotransmitters, right? We talk about constructive vehicles versus destructive vehicles, right? Destructive vehicles increase your dopamine in the short run, but sacrifice long-term restoration and healing and support, right? That's like cocaine, Adderall, methamphetamines, refined sugar, maybe like even things like extreme sports, these kind of things that really stimulate the adrenaline, where the restorative things are like anti-inflammatory diet, amino acids, supporting gut healing, meditation, good sleep, movement that is restorative, that doesn't kill you afterwards, right? So these are the big things that you can do naturally to help with that. Any other questions on that, feel free and let me know. But dopamine is really important. This is the I love you neurotransmitter. This is the neurotransmitter people go to stimulate to get that sense of satisfaction. So in functional medicine world, we'll use L-tyrosine. We'll even use some green tea. We'll use an herb called mucuna. It comes from the velvet bean, which is actually pure L-dopa. That can be super helpful. In my line, I use a product called Dopa Replete Plus, which has the mucuna in there, or we'll just use Dopa Replete, which is just the tyrosine in there as well. So those are some really good options to help with that. I'm going to go pop in here on Facebook online on my computer where people make comments on my Facebook here. I can't quite read them all. It cuts them off. I'm going to see if I can access it on my bigger screen here as well. All right, let me go hit up some of the questions on YouTube. I got some more questions here. What does a chiropractic radiologist do? Well, typically they're trained like a conventional radiologist to look at x-rays, but they look more subtly at like subluxations, and they have a more functional perspective looking at an x-ray than just as a disease-based pathological perspective. Hope that helps. Any sauna recommendations for far or near infrared? Sauna Space is a good one. They're pretty affordable. They have a combination, I think, of near and far. I could be wrong with that. It may just be near. But Sauna Space is good. Also, Sunlighten is a good one too. It's a little bit more expensive and stationary, not as mobile. Sauna Space is a little bit cheaper and easier to move. Can functional medicine help gout? Absolutely. Gout is going to primarily be coming from lots of high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is going to stimulate uric acid. A lot of people are like, oh, well, it's rich foods and it's going to be meats and fats and all these, these like purine things that come from meats. I find that it's going to be mainly from high fructose corn syrup and alcohol. Now, if you go back and look at people that are doing a lot of meats, they may also be doing a lot of these things as well. So maybe this adds kind of insult to injury. But if you look at the drugs like allopurinol, for instance, that's going to be like a xanthine oxidase inhibitor, right? So the big things that stimulate xanthine oxidase are going to be high fructose corn syrup. Your body is going to basically produce uric acid from too much fructose. And uric acid is going to decrease an enzyme called endothelial synthase. And endothelial synthase is going to be something that helps vasodilate the vasculature. So really important. People that have high fructose levels, high uric acid levels, it can also increase blood pressure and create more inflammation in the arterial system. So I hope that makes sense. So cutting out the fructose is going to be really helpful, typically below 15 grams a day if you have high uric acid. And I've seen major improvements with that. Let's see here. I'm taking collagen peptides, being as I still have H. pylori as binders in my GI tract. Is that a good move? So collagen peptides. So I'm not sure what you mean by a binder. So if we're giving binders to help bind up H. pylori like die-off, we'll do like various pectins or fibers or activated charcoal for binders. Collagen peptides are great because it's amino acids from connective tissue. We like that because most people aren't, consuming tendon and ligament and cartilage and hide, which have specific amino acid profiles to help with hair, skin, nails, joints. Most people are eating muscle meat. So I'm a huge fan of collagen for that reason. Also, collagen peptides tend not to be as gluconeogenic, meaning if you're trying to go more ketogenic, you can eat some of that protein and it's less likely to convert over to glucose. So I like that. So I have, I formulated my true collagen with collagen peptides. We run it through an enzymatic process where there's proteolytic enzymes added. Most people have sulfuric acid in there. All right. And you can taste it in the coffee a little bit. It doesn't quite break down as well. If you look at mine, when you put it in water or you put it in coffee, it breaks down really well. And that's because it's blended and there's proteolytic enzymes actually added to it to break it down. So I hope that helps. Huge fan of it. Have it right here in my coffee. Awesome. Okay, cool. Let me keep on rolling here, guys. I'm trying to go back and forth between Facebook and YouTube. And just so anyone knows here, if you want to get a message answered, always do it via YouTube. The Facebook app really, really stinks for messages here. It hides them on me. I only can see one at a time and then it's gone. My YouTube, it lists them all out and I can see the whole thing here. Let me see if I can go to the website. Okay, I got one here from Sherry. Hey, Sherry, hope you're doing well. What's your thoughts on microblading eyebrows or people with autoimmune? I found a girl, she uses safer ink. I'm not sure what microblading is. If you can give me a little bit more intel on that in the next comment, I could give you a comment there. Hey, Jim, hope you're doing well. Good seeing you on here. Is it important to take several readings of your thyroid, TSH, T4 free, T3 free, for example? My TSH fluctuates between 2 and 5. Yeah, great question, Stefan. So I think number one, just have a set time of the day where you're testing your TSH levels. I like the morning time. You're coming off of a fasting state, pretty stable in the morning. So I would do it in the morning and just make that your consistent time where you're taking a look at it. I like that. Hope that helps. All right, I'm going to go back here to YouTube questions. Let's see here. Hey, doc, I'm taking HCl with pepsin. My appetite doubles and eat twice as much recommended portions. If I don't take it, bowel won't move. So what I'm hearing is that you eat twice as much when you have more HCl and enzyme there. That's phenomenal. It makes sense, right? Because if you're eating a whole bunch of food and it just sits like a brick in your stomach, that gastric stimulation, right? The gastric stimulation is like just food like sitting in there longer, and the pressure that hits those baroreceptors in the intestines is going to signal some satiety, right? So of course it makes sense if you're breaking that food down and you're letting it move out of that stomach within that hour time frame, you're probably going to be able to eat more. You're going to feel like you can handle more. You're not going to have that indigestion feeling. So that's great. If you're able to break down those proteins and fats, that's going to improve satiety because good fats are going to produce more good ketones. Healthy digestion with hydrochloric acid stimulates that cholecystokinin, which is produced by the small intestine. It helps the gallbladder work. It also signals satiation. So we like that. Again, the reason why healthy proteins and fat should make up the balance of your meal is because you get really good appetite regulation, which essentially just gives you self-control. You're not going to have cravings guiding you. You're going to be able to eat foods based on what you know is right, not what your cravings tell you. Any thoughts on a whole food plant-based diet? Again, I think a paleo diet is mostly whole food plant-based. I mean, I'm going to go have a green drink here in a minute, which is about 4.5 pounds of ground up green vegetables. And if you look at my plate, for the most part, it's more than half of it's just really good veggies. If you look at a lot of vegans or vegetarians, a lot of them are eating a lot of crapohydrates, if you will. They're eating a lot of grains. They may be eating more processed carbohydrates, like higher grains, more starches, maybe not quite as much veggies. I think I eat as much veggies as a lot of vegans or vegetarians do. Again, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you can do it right. You have to probably supplement with some additional protein, either from hemp or pea as a good option. Really have to emphasize good fats from avocado, nuts and seeds, coconut oil, those kind of things. You really got to make sure that you're optimizing those. And I would even recommend like a DHEA, EPA fatty acid source supplement, either from like algae or even just do a fish oil supplement if you could do that. So there's ways you could do it. I think a lot of people on a whole food plant-based diet, they think, oh my God, I feel so much better. It's not what you're eating that makes you feel that much better. It's what you're not eating. It's the fact that you're not eating a whole bunch of refined, less crappy meat. Hopefully you're eating more vegetables. Most people that go vegan or vegetarian and more whole food plant-based tend to be eating less refined sugar. They're cutting out soda. They're cutting out alcohol. They tend to be moving a lot more. They tend to be eating, no trans fat. So there's a lot of things that they're not doing now that they're getting a benefit from. The thing is, you can kind of go on more of a whole food plant-based paleo template where you're eating some animal products in there and the other things and still get all the same benefits, right? Most people in that realm kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that's the biggest mistake. What's your take on water fasting, 10 days? I think if you have the ability to do it and you're like in a stress-free environment, that's fine. If you have to work and do things like that, I think it's going to be impractical because your body needs nutrients to run. There's a reason why people, in the World War II concentration camps looked emaciated in the end, right? Because you're shifting your body into a real extreme catabolic state. I think a lot of the benefits happen on the water fasting is because people have really inflamed guts and they're eating lots of food allergens, and they're now not eating a lot of those foods, and their gut can kind of have a break to like chill out, not have to digest, not get exposed to the same food allergens. But I think a lot of people on water fast, they benefit because of the food allergen decrease. I think you can get similar benefits through just going on an anti-inflammatory paleo or autoimmune template, or even a GAPS template, and maybe add in some intermittent fasting or just a shorter weekend fast. I think that may be a better option that's practical for more people. Russ writes in, it seems that when I take a high quality probiotic or consume fermented foods, I become constipated. It's sign of methane, SIBO. Yeah, it definitely sounds like that, especially if it's like your lactobacillus bifidobacter type of bacteria that's causing a lot of that bloating. I would look at maybe trying a spore biotic or a soil-based probiotic, see if that fixes it. But it sounds like you're going to have to go through a SIBO protocol and get that worked out. Sam writes in, make sure you get electrolytes, sodium, potassium, salts. Yep, that's really important. Electrolytes and minerals are really good, especially if you're going more ketogenic as well. Jeff writes in, I took a supplement holiday and I'm going to keep off the gut killing herbs. When's the best time to add back the GI Clear 1? I've only been taking HCl and I think enzymes for the sinuses. So number one, with your case, Jeff, I would follow that die-off reaction handout, which basically says you want to get back to baseline. So wherever baseline is for you before you had that die-off reaction, get back to baseline and then gently add everything back in one at a time. So I think it was the GI Clear 1 for you, which has the Java brucea, Hydratus coptis, Demona, dill, yarrow, those kind of things. I think were a little bit more irritating for you. So I would make that the last one you add back in. I'd make sure you take it with food, and I would make sure you do one capsule at a time, increase one capsule per day. So very, very gentle. And if you have any irritation or setbacks, back off. If you need to add any activated charcoal in there or some L-glutamine or some ginger tea, I think that's great as well. Getting back to Sherry's question about the eyebrow tattooing, I would want to know what the compound is. A lot of times they use corn byproduct stuff. So you got to find out what kind of dye they're using. There's different kinds where they use metals, some use corn. And I would lean on just wanting to know what kind of the dye they're actually using for that. That'd be helpful. Because if there's some corn stuff in there with some autoimmunity, that may be something you want to stay away from just because of gluten cross reactivity, and that stuff, will sit under the skin as well. see here. What can help with neuropathy and mild cognitive brain dysfunction? Great question, Meg. I would say get the insulin resistance under control. Almost a lot of neuropathy is going to happen through increased glycation, and a lot of the cognitive issues are going to cause from insulin resistance, leaky gut, leaky brain stuff. So get the carbohydrates and the insulin resistance dialed in, and get out the inflammatory foods. I mean, that's going to be a foundation for almost any chronic condition, right? So like I sound like a broken record here. The key thing to focus on is the foundation, is the foundation, is the foundation. If you look at any great basketball player or any athlete in any sport, right, there's certain fundamentals that they work on all the time, right? Basketball, maybe, you know, your free throw, right? Or dribbling. There's certain foundations that you have to have 100% down before you can do all the fancy stuff, right? So in functional medicine, it's the same foundational stuff: diet, blood sugar stability, hydration, sleep. So I sound like a broken record, but a lot of functional medicine docs, they get so much into the nuance of the program and the protocol and this new lab test and this new supplement, and they just forget the foundational stuff. They just totally gloss over it. And I think that's why a lot of people, you know, don't get help with with some other functional medicine docs. So always make sure the foundation's never, you know, always being supported. Why is there so much hate on systemic enzymes and their powerful contributions? I'm not aware of any hate on them. But regarding systemic enzymes, you want to make sure they're enterically coated if you're taking them systemically, meaning you're taking them away from food. And more than likely, you're doing that to help with blood clots, or to help with inflammation, or maybe to help digest cancer cells or scar tissue, whatever that is. I like the serapeptidase. Enterically coated enzymes that get into the bloodstream is one. I like a company out of World Nutrition called Vitalzyme without the E. I like that a lot. Okay, excellent. Let me keep on rolling here. I'm going back and forth from Facebook to YouTube here. Ba, 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 ba. Many functional practitioners are now very quickly diagnose SIBO just based on a breath test. The other camp of practitioners think a breath test is not accurate and think SIBO is overdiagnosed, such as Chris Kresser. Where do you stand? Well, here's the deal, right? You can't ignore patients' clinical symptoms. If you're getting bloated and gassy because of probiotics or fermented foods, chances are you have SIBO. If increasing fermentable carbohydrates in your diet causes gas or bloating or bowel irregularity, chances are you have SIBO. If, I'm trying to think here, if you have not gotten a stool test, there could be other things that are maybe above the SIBO in the hierarchy of infections. Like there could be a parasitic infection, right? You could have a small intestinal fungal overgrowth as well. There could be an H. pylori infection. So yeah, I mean, there may be something that's creating SIBO-like symptoms, and there may be a bacterial overgrowth that's there, but there's something else above that that also needs to be looked at. So you got to look at everything, you know, the big picture. I think if you did those things that I mentioned with certain foods and you're seeing improvement, pulling those out, or you're seeing an exacerbation, adding those in, that's a pretty good sign. But I have no problem doing those tests. I think it can be helpful, especially if you have chronic issues, because you may have really high level of certain gases and it may only go down a little bit, but still be high. And it may go down a little bit again, but it's still high. So I think it's nice to know where you're at, just because it creates really good compliance to move on for a second round or a third round, where if you don't have some of that testing, it may put you in a situation where you're not quite sure what to do. Hope that helps. Let's see here. It seems like when I take high quality probiotics or fermented foods, I become constipated. That's a sign of methane SIBO. I think I already answered that one. Dr. J, are certain nuts and seeds more prohistamine? Been getting itchy and red rash on my hand after pistachios or almonds. Yeah, I mean, that tends to be more of a histamine issue. I have a histamine handout in the members area, James, so take a look at it. That I would pull that food out and try to go lower histamine and see if that is an issue or not. Again, if it's starting to become more allergy season, you know, you may notice that extra histamine load may be an issue. So pull that out and see if that helps. Do you list these templates on your site? I'm not sure what templates. Oh, the autoimmune or the paleo template? Yes, I do. That's part of my Just in Health eating plan. I have a really good video on that where there's an opt-in for it. I think if you do justinhealth.com/meal-map, I think you'll find that opt-in for it. See here, is almond milk bad for AIP? Well, not that it's bad, but I would say if you're on AIP, you'd want to definitely abstain for almonds for at least a few weeks. Do you like memes? Sure, depends on the meme. Thanks, it's me. Appreciate it. Suffering from hormonal acne, especially around my mouth, chin. What do I do? So if it's hormonal related acne here, well, it depends. I mean, if you're a guy, I mean, it tends to not be, it's going to be more from insulin. It's going to be more from excess of insulin and from inflammatory foods. If it's a female, you're going to see it at certain times in the cycle. You're going to see it typically leading up to menstruation, maybe during menstruation. So as a guy, I would look more at the insulin and the estrogen issues. Dr. J, why does the thyroid bother me when I eat flaxseed, even though I roast them to deactivate the goitrogens? How can I enjoy the benefits of flax? It could just be an allergen issue because maybe there's some autoimmunity there, and just the fact that there's some proteins and anti-nutrients in the seed could be activating some autoimmune stuff. So if cutting it out makes you feel better, then I would try just keeping it out. It may be something that you just have to keep out for a period of time and then try adding in later. I know it's, Ramona, it's one of those things you don't want to hear, but if it's an allergy issue, you may just have to pull it out. But I recommend every month try adding it back in and see how you do. Hey there, Ali Mo. Jeff writes in, my wife has finally went to a doctor after all these years, put her on amoxicillin or amitriptyline and Valium. So these are like SSRI kind of medications and sleep meds. Then diagnosed her with severe depression. My mom is wanting to get tested for GI bugs later too. Yeah, it's a tough situation. I mean, a lot of these, psychiatric or, GP docs that are using a lot of these psychotropic meds, they're just not getting to the root cause. And that's the biggest issue. They're using, serious drugs to kind of numb you out, to prevent you from really seeing the reality that your diet sucks, your blood sugar sucks, your nutrition's poor, you're super inflamed, you got a lot of gut issues, and they're just kind of numbing your reality out. And that may be okay if you're in a danger to yourself, or maybe you're suicidal, or you're in a really bad place. But the problem is there's no transitioning off these things. You're on them and then you're there forever for the most part. And there's no like fixing everything. And that's the problem with a lot of, psychiatrists or people in the mental health sphere that are using drugs. They don't really get to the root cause of why the physiology and the biochem is in this such imbalanced state. They're kind of just numbing you out for it. It's pretty sad. Okay. Well, I'm glad that the whole family's starting to get back on the boat. That's really good. Awesome. Well, any other questions here, guys? I'm going to go jump on another podcast. So if you're here and you want to get more questions answered, I got a holistic dentist coming back in just a few minutes, and we're going to do a whole podcast that will be live as well. So if you have any dental health questions, I will be back. Any last questions here, guys? Feel free and let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Take care of Facebook. We will be back in a few. All right, everyone on YouTube, we'll talk later. Have a great weekend. See you back in a few.